spend on fixing up the place and like overall? Or how much did you invest?
Yeah. So I acquired it with 5% down. It was a $433,000 house at the time. So it was like 20 to 30,000, 30K all in closing costs to acquire it. And I had to do the roof, new concrete steps. I had to do the floors, the walls, a new bathroom, cut 30 trees down, furnish it. I think all said and done, it's probably around $80,000. So for all of a sudden, $110,000 all in, I have it furnished, renovated, cash flowing Airbnb that made $80,000 per year gross revenue and netted about $30,000 per year after all expenses.
Someone like going into this right now that wants to invest, what's your advice around like all these different variables that you have to consider?
There's different ways to get in, and it's often like a flow chart, like I mentioned. Do you want a pure cash flowing asset, or do you want an asset that you use sometimes, have personal use out of? Do you want a house in Miami, and is that why you're going to do one? So if you're pure on the investment side, it's going to be like work with your own situation. How much can you borrow? What's your debt to income ratio? What's your W-2? Can you afford a conventional mortgage? Or do you have to use either arbitrage or a debt service coverage ratio loan that might not care about your income to acquire that first one? So it's figuring out like what your borrowing ability or purchasing ability is, and also what's your comfort level experience with real estate. If it's your first one, you should start close to home. Like you should probably house hack, Elijah, like you're doing for the first one. Buy a unit, buy a one unit that has a separate entrance unit where it's not considered a multifamily. So you can buy it with a conventional with 5% down. You don't have to FHA it. Like that is awfully great way to start. Like I actually did that for my third one, and I probably should have started there. I probably should have started with just buying a house when I was young, when I was like 20 to 25, and then renting out rooms to my friends. Like that should have been step one. And that's a slam dunk, easy business model. Like most people, you can borrow from family, start saving up your 401k, borrow against it. Like, you can get that 5% down if you have the W-2 power, like you do coming out of school, but you can scratch that 3.5%, 5% down pretty fast. And then just start offsetting your own housing costs. Like when you reduce your own housing costs down to zero, you start to get thousands more per month for investing, and like your fixed cost goes way down. So my advice is to reduce your own housing costs by either live with your family for the first 5 years and invest your mortgage. Do stuff like what you're doing of like acquire your first unit and have it cover your mortgage costs with just its income from the basement. So Google was a dream job for me. As I talked about, like for 10 years I was trying to get there. It was like the pinnacle of how cool of a company you can work at. I got paid 2 or 3 times a good salary as soon as I joined it. It was like opening up going to kindergarten where everyone gets $250,000, where people play with blocks. I got my face painted in the hallway. Hey, you want your face painted? Like, oh, okay, I don't really want to work. And it was like unbelievable bright people around you, but baristas and cookie classes. And I was like, what is going on? Like, why are these offices so amazing? And why are they giving us so much? And it just became obvious that was an attempt for them to just keep you in that environment as long as possible and get as much as they can out of you. That's the formula of having an employee, is to pay them less than they're worth. So even though we're getting paid crazy money, software engineers at Google making $300 to $500K, it's a fraction of what they're really worth if they were to try to close that gap of let's actually get all of what I'm worth for my money. Because it just became frustrating having this endless corporate ladder grind where they're like, you're going to get the next level. If you keep producing like you're at that next level, eventually you're going to get there. And you're like, what do you mean eventually I'm going to get there? Like, I'm doing it now. Like, I'm showing you it now. So once I did that first short-term rental, it was like a year into being at Google, and it made me $30K more per year, which was practically a promotion at Google. I was like, that wasn't that hard. Like, I could just do more and more of those, or I could keep like doing this like corporate ladder grind and pull other people down, push up my work. That's what I saw other people doing. I was like, no, that's not what I'm doing. So I just lost all passion for doing the Google work once I started doing real estate and started teaching other people how to do it themselves at Google, and just snowballed into me being like, I can stack up the assets that I need to have the trajectory to leave Google, to have 3, 4 highly producing short-term rentals, have some side streams of income to supplement it. And then you don't all of a sudden need your W-2. You don't have to sit in front of a computer for 40 hours and wreck your back for 25, 40 years. Like, you don't have to work till you die. It's like what everyone's trying to do. And what I'm trying to not do. I consider myself retired right now. I quit Google after 3.5 years. I'm not making exactly what I was making at Google, but I was making more than I was before I joined Google, and that was enough for me back then. So if I have a growth trajectory to close that gap of what I'm worth from what they were paying me, like I'm gonna take that shot every single time if that's who I am. I do like intense adventurous sports like mountain biking and snowboarding, and I like dive into new ventures without really a huge failure, or fear of failure, I should say. Like most people are really afraid of messing it up and getting it wrong. But once you release that fear, you're like, I'm gonna fail at some stuff, and the only way to get good is to fail. Like Tiger Woods sucked at golf when he started, and then all of a sudden he was the best. Not because of some chance about the dice, like practice. So by doing it, by being willing to fail at different business models, which I could show you a list of graveyard businesses like Google that I tried to do, just dropped. I was like, nope, that's not seeing immediate results. I think you just iterate around what are businesses you could start, how could you make money, and get some traction, and then build on that, right? That's what I've done with my short-term rentals.
So let's talk about cash flow, right? So for someone that's in the tech job that wants to follow your footsteps and go in this path, how can you build a cash flow to replace their expenses?
I think short-term rentals is the best way. There's other ways too, like you can build up 60 arbitrage units. You can, but like generally the strategy from what I did is to acquire a primary residence, like eventually rent it out, acquire another one, maybe do like the tax break on that one, do a cost segregation on your first one to get the money for the second one, use your kind of stock from year 2 with that tax return to get your third one. I think it's really a 3 to 5. It's less than 10 definitely, but it depends on the size and the location. And it really depends on yourself and your situation. A lot of Googlers have like kids and families, and it's higher if you were to do your FIRE calculation, what are my fixed expenses? It's all about covering your fixed expenses, like getting to that point, and then having the growth to grow past that point. That's what my path was. It's like, all right, if I lean down my expenses, what can I get down to? What can I boost the income up to with like my partner and I combined? So for me, it was 3 short-term rentals, 3 highly producing short-term rentals. And it took me, let's say, an original 110. I said I invested. The second house I built, I put 100 in, and I raised a little bit of money, so that was 200K. And the third short-term rental in Chicago, I put 20, 30K down again, 5% to acquire. So all of a sudden for 220, maybe furnishings, $250,000, I leveraged with mortgages to acquire $1.7 million worth of real estate that could generate almost 200K in gross revenue and net about half of that, net about 100. So that was my personal formula. As I was making 100K before I joined Google. Google boosted me to 2-3x that. I just needed to get past over 100K. I'd be like, something 6 figures, and in 2-3 years, I'm gonna 5x this. And at Google, they were gonna ramp me up and then 4-year cliff me, and then keep carroting and sticking with me with the promo. They're like, come on, keep dancing. And I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done playing this game. It's like, I'm gonna give myself a promo. I'm gonna launch a new business. I wrote the article and posted it. I was telling you on LinkedIn how to quit your tech job with real estate, and it was this conversation. And my director, while I was at Google, saw it, and he canned my promo. He was like, nope, Dan's not getting a promo. I see what he's doing over there. He's teaching my employees how to quit. So you need to be stealthy about this, but you can only be stealthy for so long. Like some of the people I look up to in the industry, like Tony J. Robinson, he got fired from Tesla for doing the exact side hustle that I was doing at Google because they were a little more cutthroat. And they're more like, no, you can't have this side stuff. Get out of here. But at Google, they're just like, that's great. Everyone does side stuff. I don't care.
Hold on, let's dive into that. How to quit your job.
With real estate. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about what the motivation to do that was, how you actually got to the point where you said, fuck it, I'm just gonna write this article and post it, and I don't care who sees this, and
Yeah.
what the consequences are.
So it was like into my time into Google where I knew I wanted to quit, where I was like, I can't stay here for that much longer. And that was probably a 2-year period where I was like, I have to quit. And then I just started to build that plan for myself. It's like, what does quitting look like? How much cash flow do I need? Short-term rentals are seasonal. How do you layer that when only making money in the summer over like this same strategy? So I think it came with like trial and error and like launch and validation. I launched my first one, it made within 5% of the revenue I thought I was gonna make. Made within 10% of the revenue I thought I was gonna make. I launched my second one, it hit those exact numbers. And I was like, okay, I can build the plan, and then the plan is happening. And I can see it happening in front of me. And then I was down to like my last 6 months, and I was like, I'd launched unit 2 and 3, essentially I had 4 or 5 units, including my own unit. And I was like, I feel like I'm there. I feel like I can even take this next step to teaching people, which I'd been doing informally for a whole year. I could take that next step, and I have my 12-month emergency fund. I have my base net income taken care of. Like, let's just do it. So I wrote that article because I feel like I wouldn't have wanted it myself. Of like, what are the steps to quitting this W-2 job and not needing it? So I just created it because people kept asking me, and I posted it because, I don't know, I just have that DGAF attitude. Like, I don't really care what people think about me. And I didn't think there was anything really wrong with posting that article, just being like, this is how I'm about to quit your company. What are you going to do about it?
And they didn't do anything about it.
But they pulled my promo. That was right before I was up for L5 promo at Google. And they were like, sorry, you're an L4 for life now. And I'm like, what?
But they didn't let you go.
No. And I actually, due to that, after getting like kind of the rug pulled on my promo because of that, I just went from not really trying that hard, but still impressing them, to not trying at all and not impressing them. Where I was an overachiever, whatever, like exceeds expectation, part of the bell curve, I guess for you over here, my whole career. But all of a sudden at Google, like 6 months after that I posted that article, I was about to be on a performance improvement plan. And they were like, read me the riot act. They're like, listen, you missed some meetings and this happened and your passion is not there anymore. And I'm like, just brushed them off and pretended to give them a plan to like bring it back up. But eventually it did come to a head where I told them what I was doing and I stopped delivering for long enough where I was like, maybe no, fire me with this wave of tech layoffs. But I didn't even get fired. I had to quit. They fired like the high-performing moms on maternity leave before they fired like Dan the slacker. And so that was disappointing. But I'd already built out that plan of how to quit. What's the pieces you need, what's the reserve you need. So I just quit.
And the creepy thing is, you were actually teaching others how to do this inside of Google itself. While we're
Google, probably like Microsoft and other tech companies, with enough high-earning W-2, people are just searching for ways to invest their money and searching for passive income, just like doctors are doing. So I realized there was this massive group in Google and a lot of other short-term rental hosts, but no central group other than the big real estate investors group, which has 10,000 people on a community server. So I just created a short-term rental bi-weekly hour meeting, and I just started grouping and having discussions with other hosts. A lot of newbies came in, so we had to keep answering the same questions over like, how do I analyze? How do I know where to go? So I developed my skills teaching people through just putting myself out there, listening to other hosts, and trying to answer questions from new people. The Mastermind course was just really an attempt to formalize what people had been asking me. They're like, how did you do this? How did you automate this? How did you analyze it? And there's some other people out there that have made similar programs, some that I had been learning on YouTube off myself. And I had been doing it informally and giving away my time for free to people long enough that once I quit Google, I was like, what? I need to get paid for my time. And if people wanted to lock my day off and ask, how do I launch short-term rental? Teach me how to do it. Like, I had to figure out a way to get paid for that. So I started talking to people about like individual consulting, and they had asked me for it. And I figured, well, the only way for it to be scalable is to produce content around it and create a formalized program.